No, I think this is the conversation that we should have been having in the wake of Lehman Brothers and AIG 12, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. Oh, geez, 14 years ago. It's been that long. That was the time to have the conversation instead of to be dazzled by whatever the Fed, whatever crap the Fed came up with. Instead of, oh my God, the Fed's doing this and that. People should have said, Fed is incompetent. Everything they're doing, nothing works. We need to figure out, number one, what went wrong, because we still don't know to this day. It was a global dollar shortage, not subprime mortgages. And number two, we should realize that this represented more than just a temporary shock. Like the Great Depression, this was a systemic failure. And it wasn't a temporary systemic failure. It was a permanent systemic failure. So the conversation needs to be, unfortunately, we still have to figure out, for most people, we need to tell them what actually happened over the last 15 years, really the last 50 years, which most people can't accept. When you tell them that the monetary system evolved into something else 50 years ago, they think you're nuts. They think this is some conspiracy theory, which is why I continually have to use these quotes from central bankers and academic scholarship from way back. You don't take my word for it. It's all documented here, because it's too much for people to really make that intellectual leap into, what do you mean the monetary system evolved differently 50 years ago? And then that played a huge role in 2008, which wasn't about subprime mortgages. QE wasn't money printing. It's too much for people to absorb all at once. So, well, the first task here is to get people to make that intellectual leap, to look at the evidence, to look at the data and say, yes, this is what really happened. And when they do that, they will then conclude reasonably that the system broke. It hasn't been fixed. QE is the reason they do one QE after another is because the banking system is what matters, not the central bank. And the banking system has been impaired for 15 years in the same way it had been impaired for 30 years in Japan. So we need reform in the banking system. And I don't really mean banking, but I mean the way we actually transact in the Eurodollar system itself. We probably need to rethink the entire system from the ground up and start with something new, from scratch, which is an even bigger challenge, because now you're talking about an international currency. Just because the Eurodollar was denominated in US dollars, it really was an international currency because it impacted everybody around the world. And we are nowhere near ready to create or to have people come together to design a practical and useful international currency. Can you imagine something like that today? So even if we could get everybody to agree, yes, the monetary system did this 50 years ago, it led to all these problems, it created the 2008 crisis, it didn't get fixed after the crisis, and now we got to fix it with an international currency. Oh my God, it's just too much. But that's really what needs to be, that's what needs to happen. People need to become aware of what the monetary system actually is, understand that it broke down 15 years ago, and that it needs to be fixed. Probably we need to start from scratch.